go into with these videos. So the assertion, the idea in Hebrews is that Melchizedek lives eternally as a priest. And this is the New Testament interpretation of the Old Testament materials. He lives eternally as a priest. And the point of the chapter, of course, is that Jesus is the true celestial high priest. So the Christian interpretation in Hebrews 7 could be showing a contrast between the celestial high priest and the earthly high priest, and the one is an embodiment, an imitation principle, as it were, of the other, on earth as it is in heaven, you know. So, and Margaret Barker, once again, the high priest in the temple cultus, in the Solomonic temple era, the high priest represented the Lord. Well, could this be the function of Melchizedek as Hebrews 7 is trying to bring it in? You see how, by the time Hebrews was written, chapter 7, the Christian interpretation swayed away, as it were, from the Jewish idea of having Melchizedek being the heavenly high priest himself. They said, no, that's applied to Jesus only, according to that interpretation of Hebrews. You see how that works? Yeah, very interesting. So overall, it appears that Melchizedek is an exalted patriarch who embodies the ideal figure of the celestial high priest. That's what I just said, which is in turn embodied by Jesus. So he enacts the legacy pattern in the sense that he is of typological significance for the author's understanding of Jesus. So Melchizedek is a typological situation for Jesus' context as the high priest of our salvation. And the author shows no interest in eschatological applications of the Melchizedek tradition at all. There's nothing of the end of days in Hebrews 7. There was strongly in the Dead Sea Scrolls, however. It's kind of an interesting comparison contrast, isn't it? And then as a divine mediator after 100 of the Common Era, and he goes to the Gnostic texts, the Melchizedek Tractate is very interesting. We have a Melchizedek Tractate in the Gnostic writings that we found in 1945. Nag Hammadi. The cool thing is we have some fragments from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Also, these various traditions fill in the gaps of our knowledge, at least how some groups of people understood other types of people in the Bible. And this is the utter fascination of it. This is what makes it so dynamite to study this stuff. Fill in our understanding and knowledge. It might give you insights into other biblical personalities or other biblical situations that you wouldn't have had before if you just read from the Bible. See, this is why I encourage, even we LDS, this is why I encourage us. Look, it's fantastic to read the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, the Doctrine and Covenants. But don't stop there. I understand those are the canonical scriptures, and I accept that, but there's more to it than that by far and large. This is some of that, I believe. So, well, the Gnostic, the idea of Melchizedek as an exalted patriarch, as a principal angel. So see here again, back in the Nag Hammadi, the Gnostic materials, there's a divine aspect to this supposed earthly righteous king. There is a divine connection as well. See that? Well, and he is the future ideal figure, both divine warrior and eschatological high priest. Again, it focuses on the end of days. Melchizedek and Jesus Christ are identified in the Gnostic Melchizedek Tractate. They are one and the same person. And that's an interesting interpretation also, isn't it? Very interesting how it... and then he talks about the second book of Yehu. I have this. It's a Coptic text. Very important text. I'll be getting to the books of Yehu eventually when I do some Gnosticism stuff. Well, I've got some stuff on Melchizedek too. In the book of Yehu, Jesus prays to the Father for Zorokathora Melchizedek, to bring the water of the baptism of fire of the Virgin of Light, presumably heavenly waters of baptism, to the disciple, and Melchizedek does this. Very interesting. He is a heavenly being with a priestly function, enacting the legacy pattern. There is a focus of the intervention pattern with him as exalted patriarch and the celestial priest, but there's no end of days, there's no eschatological content. And then the Pistis Sophia, this is another Coptic Gnostic. They call it Gnostic, but I don't know. Even the label Gnostic doesn't quite jive with a lot of these writings. There's arguments about the Gospel of Thomas now. It's not necessarily Gnostic. Neither is the Pistis Sophia or the books of Jehu. The question is, how do we categorize them? See, we moderns have this idea. We have to categorize something in order to understand it. Well, isn't it better just to read it and then compare it with all the other writings and literatures of antiquity? Yeah, you know what I mean? Well, in the Pistis Sophia, and I also have this, some very good studies on the Pistis Sophia. He is both a heavenly being whose job it is to gather the purified light motes from the universe and deposit them in the treasury of the light. In Book 4, in addition, Zoroaster Melchizedek has conflict with the aeons, with the archons, I mean. He is a principal angel, is how he's viewed, and he has traces of the ideal figures of the celestial high priest and the divine warrior. And then there's other materials, the second Enoch, which Andrei Orlov has discussed an enormous amount of information on the Melchizedek legend in second Enoch. And he is born of Sophonim, the wife of the priest Ner, and his mother conceived him in her dotage without intercourse. He was born of a virgin. Where have you heard that before? That's interesting, isn't it? The precocious infant looks like a 3-year-old child, and he begins to speak immediately. See, this is some of the Gnostic garblings, that the add-ons to the story. They did the same with Jesus also. The most enigmatic figures, it seems like they add on a whole bunch of stuff. It's kind of interesting. Well, he is made a priest of the family, and he's later taken to the Garden of Eden by the Archangel Michael. So here they're separate beings, you see, in the Pistis Sophia. But he's taken back to the Garden of Eden by Michael, whom the LDS equate with Adam. It's kind of interesting there, isn't it? His main function as mediator seems to be an ideal figure of the future and the eschatological high priest. And then Jesus and Melchizedek, and he talks about the frequent use of Psalm 110, Mark 14:62, 1 Corinthians 15:20 through 25. And this describes the post-resurrection exaltation of Jesus, which is confirmed in the early Christian tradition. And the Melchizedek tradition here, he says, plays some role in this. They're still casting about for solutions of what is the total context of the Melchizedek tradition as it equates with Jesus. Is Hebrews 7 the only possible background context? No, it's not.